The first demo I want to talk about regarding governance is how do you deal with maybe site collections that are growing too big. In the past, what we've done is build a set of reports, but someone still has to go out and actually look at those reports to see what's going on. What I want to do is show you an InText report that is utilizing InText Workflow to do the proper notifications. And this is very, very, very simple. So what I have here is an InText report that's just giving me the size of the site collections in my environments. You can see as I scroll over them, I get some more data. I can actually click on these and get some drill-through data if I want to. What I want to show you, scroll over here now, is how I can customize this report. If I click on Edit Schedule, I can see some parameters here that we use to fire the report. Its next run, it repeats every day. I'm keeping 7 reports in the history. The interesting part is down here at the bottom. This is new with the new version of Nintex reporting. I can actually fire a workflow every time this report is run. So if I go to Edit Workflow, you can see I've got a real simple report here. What it's going to do is go back and pull the data from the port that I just ran, where it says Query Nintex Reporting. I have the option to go back and pull the data out of that report from the pre-run data right here. And I can tell it how I want to sort the data, how many rows I want to pull back, and where I want to store this. And for this example, I basically set up a variable that's a collection. It's a 2-dimensional array. So it's going to loop through all the sites that came back from the Nintex report that were greater than 300 meg and build a string, basically a big string. And at the end of this workflow, it's going to fire an email to, in this case, it's me. It could be anybody. It could be a distribution list. But basically, we created the text down here. We said the following site collections are larger than 300 meg, and then I entered that variable that I created, site summary variable. Like this. This is how you can actually enter variables from the workflow here, for those of you that aren't familiar with Nintex Workflow. And then I gave a link back to the report in case somebody wanted to go and look at it later. So what did we just see here? We got a report that normally would have just been running. Maybe somebody looked at it, maybe not. Now we just have a simple notification that fires off, that once they get to a certain threshold, someone's going to come out here and look at these things. The second report that I want to show is looking at kind of detailed performance monitoring. Now this is important for the IT guys with things like CPU and memory usage on my servers. What's going on over time? We don't want to get killed with notifications, but we want to know when something important is happening or is out of bounds on the server. So here I've got a performance CPU report, which is basically just giving me the measurements on a single server. And there's some neat things I can do here. I can actually filter this report if I want to. I can add a rule that says, you know, I only want to see the report when it's greater than, let's just say, 10%. So I'll say when it's greater than 9. Click OK. It's going to redraw that report. So now I'm just getting kind of the peak. So I see things between 14, 20, 23%. I can click through and actually see what happened on that day if I want to. But more interestingly, do the same thing here. I'm going to go to Edit the Schedule. I'm inside the schedule parameters for Nintex reporting for the performance counter report. At the bottom, I have a workflow that's going to run for every result that comes back for this report. Now, this would be a scenario when, say, you had a filter that said, hey, only fire this, I only want to see data that's more than 80%. I mean, that's pretty serious. You want to know when that's happening. So if I had a result where it was more than 80%, we could have a very simple workflow that picked up that data. It's like, hey, and you can even double check inside the workflow. Was the CPU usage more than 80%? It's pulling the data directly from the workflow. If it was, it's going to send a notification. So another very, very simple Nintex report that calls a workflow. When you start to look at the more interesting ways to do this, and this is more along the lines of how our customers are using this today, excuse me, you start looking at integration of workflows that might call reports, either run a report or call data from a report that ran previously. So that's what I want to show you right now. So this one's fun. This is an employee termination workflow. And I have a poor employee named Claymuck, which is my test account here at Eastridge. And I've been firing that guy for the last couple of days here. So basically, this is just a SharePoint list. And a lot of you are probably familiar with what a SharePoint list is. If I come in and click New, it's simply going to ask me, there's some required fields around what am I calling this, who's the employee, and it's going to be somebody from Active Directory. We can check on that. So if I did Eastridge Claymuck, I could put the time that they were terminated, collect some more information around, hey, did you get all the physical access to the building, legal documents, and who needs to be the one who's in charge of collecting laptop and anything else. Not necessarily a fun workflow to talk about, but a very necessary one. So essentially, once you fire the workflow, I'll show you what it looks like. There's a lot of things that are going to happen all at once. The first thing that happens is an email is sent out to the initiator and the initiator's manager. And I think I've got that open. Yeah, I sure do. So this is the email as it goes out. Basically, it went to me, or if I had a manager in Active Directory, it would go to my manager also. So just like a heads up, hey, this person's been terminated and a workflow is started. We'll notify the proper individuals in inventory, legal, HR, and IT. Okay. So the first thing that happens, what's the first thing that you do? You disable their account. Not necessarily delete it, but you want to disable it so they can't log in. So very quickly we can come in and use the enterprise features of Nintex Workflow, go out to Active Directory, give it the username. This is the variable here that has Claymuck's user ID, and just say disable. If I wanted to, I could also delete it, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to gather some more information from Active Directory about their profile. And then I'm going to hit 4 different branches because there's a lot of stuff that needs to happen. You need to talk about their physical inventory, the things that they had. You need to do some stuff with HR, send some documents to them, and then ask HR to send documents back as well as legal. The interesting, fun one, of course, is in IT. Where my heart is. So what I have here, this is just a container. So if I say minimize, the other ones are minimized here. I'm going to maximize the container. And I have a couple of branches here. I've been playing with this today, and I pulled a couple of these out. These were doing things like reassigning security in SharePoint to the person's boss. It got a little complicated to pull that out. What I want to do is calculate a date range and say, all right, let's find out the last 6 months. Take today, subtract 6, and let's go run this report called the user audit report, specific user audit report. I'm passing a date which is 6 months prior to today, and then today's termination date. And I'm just giving some flags here around excluding images, excluding system files. For this one, I want to say, hey, give me all the events that this guy did on a file. Here's the user ID as it came through. I'm going to order by the web applications that he was using. I'm going to return the actual specific URL, and I'm storing in a collection called list of checked out files. Basically what happens at that point is I'm going to go through the entire collection. I'm going to loop through each of these files. I'm going to build kind of a string. This is an audit string that I'm going to use later in the notification. But inside the loop, for every one of those, I'm going to go and check that in SharePoint and say, hey, you know what? Cancel that checkout. Put it back. You can do a lot of things here. You can change the security on that file. You can send somebody a notification of that file. Whatever you have available over here on the left side as far as sites and workplaces and publishing and provisioning or operations. You can do any kind of operation there inside of that loop. So essentially, it's a way to very quickly remove access for this person and then go out and find out all the stuff that they were using, make it available for someone else, as well as give the notifications for HR, human resources, and the legal team to take action there too.